as any good steward of data, we want to ensure that we're not putting ourselves in a position where we're going to get blacklisted or we're going to run into challenges of not being able to send emails. And the reason why we do that is we want to ensure that the health of that box, that sort of inbox, and the integrity is held, so we can start to email at larger volume.
This is Revenue Makers, the podcast by 6 Sense, investigating successful revenue strategies that pushed companies ahead.
Simon, it's time for another AI episode. Are you excited? Another AI episode.
I'll tell you what, I am excited because this is AI for reals. This is not
Z.
For reals with a Z. This is for reals because this isn't any old AI. This is, number one, it's Chris Dutton, who we love and we get to work with every day. But number two, this is the nuts and bolts of starting and scaling an AI program, email agents. And by the way, this sort of masterclass is coming from somebody who started scaling with AI agents 3 years ago. So he's been there back in the day before AI was cool.
Yeah.
And he has not only been doing it for 3 years, he's talking about lessons learned. He is talking about how to crawl, walk, run. So it's really, really tactical considerations. And then a little bit of like, hey, you got to just do it.
Absolutely. So this is Chris Dutton, VP of Marketing Ops at 6 Sense. We work with him every day. Great guy to work with, incredibly talented. And it's really a case study in how 6 Sense has been using AI agents. And Chris brings in a huge wealth of knowledge, background, tips, stuff to get started with. I'm going to shut up now and let's do it.
Let's do it. Chris Dutton.
Oh boy.
What does the number 25 mean to you?
25. That's going to be my new goal this year for AI email sourced pipeline.
All right, good.
That was not what I was going to say, but my number, I was probably kicked off my own show if I said anything. Well, Chris, we wanted to talk about all things. We do so many episodes, and let's say a decent amount of AI and kind of like all these pie in the sky concepts and things that are out there. But like we work together every day, and a huge part of you're running the MOPS organization along with demand gen, and you kind of eat, sleep, breathe, drink AI email right now via email agents. So this made perfect sense to talk to you and have you on the show.
Yeah, I absolutely do. I love it. When Simon asked the question about what does 25 mean to you, immediately what came to mind was, we're going to go generate 25% of source pipeline this year, right? We're going to beat last year's goal of 20%.
Which is crazy to say. But I guess the first question off the bat, and again, we've asked many people what an AI email agent, what an email agent is, what AI is. Like in your mind, and we obviously have a specific product that 6 Sense offers, but what is an AI email agent and what does it do?
Yeah. To me, an email AI agent is an agent that allows you to scale your business, right? It allows you to do things that you may not have been able to do with your current capacity in-house. And not only just but do well, right? Have it be complementary to like what your team is doing and not act as an independent channel to go generate meetings. It really should be complementary of your team and your team's efforts. That's really what it means to me. And that is across inbound, outbound, and other demand gen activations.
So if we think about how you started on this path, and you are our VP of Marketing Operations at 6 Sense, that by definition means you are skeptical. You are rightly so. You are skeptical. You are careful. You have compliance and things to keep front and center. So when 3.5 years ago, you were given this tool and, you were told, Dutton, go. How did you even start and what sort of considerations did you have to take?
Well, we started small. It took us a little bit to get kind of ramped up. We were pressure testing, and quite honestly, like we were trying to break the AI agents. Like we wanted to see like what we could do to make it fail. We had a lot of feedback for the product team when we initially started using it. A lot of that has been brought into our agents today. It's gotten a lot better over the years. But yeah, I mean, everything that we were doing, we were going into it knowing that we're assuming some level of risk. And some of that was just the unknown, right? Like, how are our prospects going to react? How are we going to do this in a way that does not sort of rub people the wrong way internally and have people think we're trying to do their jobs or replace them? And then just a new sort of outbound motion that we hadn't done before. So, getting that sort of operational foundation in place to make sure we're GDPR compliant. When people are opting out, we're making sure like those data is carrying back to our CRM. Reporting, right? Because let's be honest, like when we're running these, Sima, questions I get from you is how much pipeline are we generating? What are we seeing from
Is it 25% yet?
Yeah, exactly.
She's never happy. More. Sorry.
I need more. But no, it's just, putting that reporting structure in place, again, all of these things we hadn't done before. So yeah, we're assuming risk and, we were absolutely taking the crawl, walk, run approach when we were rolling out these agents, 3.5 years ago.
So what was the first use case? Again, thinking back to minimizing risk and starting small, what was the initial use case? And then how did you build confidence?
Yeah. So the actual first use case, the oldest ongoing campaign we have running is and was built back in April of 2022. And that is my very own peer-to-peer outreach from my very own C. Dutton AI assistant. So this was the first campaign that we launched, going out to fellow demand gen and ops leaders into our ICP accounts that were top of funnel, looking to engage in conversation, asking open-end questions, building trust, creating value. Very first campaign that we launched, still going strong today.
We talk about measurement, right? So short of, obviously, we're trying to generate pipeline. When you're thinking about email or agents that are doing work, that are qualifying, like this is a whole new set of metrics, right? So where is the focus on, or what are the focus of the key numbers? Because again, like open rates are so like, 10 years ago and really not even effective anymore, right? Click through and all that. Like, what are the key metrics that are helping you and the team? One, it's like before pipeline, but certainly those other things have to happen before pipeline, but to really measure the health and the efficacy of some of these programs that the agents are running.
Yeah, it's a good question. So there's a few things that we're looking at. Conversion is number one. That is sort of like the nirvana, like what percentage of these conversations are we able to convert into a qualified meeting, right? We want to know what that is. The other ones that we're looking at might be a little bit more non-traditional, but I actually think they're more impactful. One is unsubscribe rate. And the reason why we look at that is we want to know if our message is impacting and resonating with our audience. Because a clear indication or a good indication of that is if it's not, they're likely going to unsubscribe and we're not going to have that opportunity to be able to reach out to them again. So unsubscribe is one that we look at. And then lastly, bounce rate. This goes back to, not just your email strategy, but more along the lines of also your contact data hygiene strategy. As you're building out your database, as you're building out your marketable contacts, making sure you have buying committee represented, you also want to make sure that you are keeping a clean database and keeping that bounce rate low. So those are the 3 data points that we tend to focus on. Now, that's not to say we don't look at opens and clicks. They just don't carry as much weight as they used to. And more often than not, they're just like a boom stat or a vanity metric.
So it's sort of like conversations. Well, conversion or conversations is the new black, right? In terms of just really like, what are you, because it's much more outcomes based too, right? If you're measuring that, then like openings and click rates, like that's great. 38% of your email rate was open. Well, that's a huge number, but versus like, we sent these emails out, we got 38 responses that turned into a conversation, of which turned into a meeting. I mean, again, it just sort of, it tells a much better story of what you're actually trying to accomplish, as opposed to just like, I guess you said vanity metrics, really, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll kind of double click on that as well. Is I think it's also setting expectations ahead of time on what the outcomes of that particular campaign or goals are going to be. We talk a lot about this with our customers, right? You've got your conversion-based campaigns and you've got your progression-based campaigns, right? Which campaigns are going to essentially drive pipeline and revenue. Those are your conversions, so more bottom of the funnel types of plays versus your top of funnel plays, which are your progression plays. We want to look at advancing accounts through the buying stages within 6 cents. Right. So being very clear on what the goals are and what the expectations are also very important as well as you're thinking about not just your AI, email agent campaigns, but just, campaigns in general.
And given those different types of campaigns, Dutton, if you had to pick 3 of your favorite sort of agent-led campaigns, what would you say?
Oh, it's a no-brainer. So the first one would be our inbound agent. This is, I think, a play in a campaign that every organization that has an inbound channel should be leveraging. It delivers consistency. The overall experience is far superior because you're meeting the prospect where they are in their journey. You can likely or most likely reduce your speed to lead time, ultimately providing, like I said, a better overall experience for your prospect. The second one is going to be around your 6 QAs. So as marketers, like our number one job is to take accounts that are top of funnel and move them to become in market, right? And that 6 QA is that outcome of all of those marketing efforts. But
so a qualified account,
a qualified account,
MQA.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And making sure that, you've got a mechanism in place that is going to reach out to every single one of those qualified accounts the same way every single time. And then the last one is around engaging your previous lost opportunities from prior quarters, right? Oftentimes, there are many reasons as to why they didn't close, some of which we just have no control over, but coming up with a very systematic way to be able to reach out to those and engage the entire buying team, not just the folks that were engaged on those previous opportunities. And I think that was a big aha moment for us the first time we launched our campaign. We saw personas that were, responding back saying, "Oh, we didn't even know we were talking with you all previously." So it was a good way to bring, that team to the table. And it has been one of our most successful campaigns that we run every quarter.
So we got great campaigns. I guess this is a 2-part question. One, any campaigns that were I'm going to say campaigns, more use cases that maybe thought were a great fit and ultimately just kind of fell flat. And then the second, opportunities that you saw for them that maybe went a different direction. Maybe we went into a traditional map campaign or something like that. Like anything like that that's been floating around.
Yeah, it's a good question. I always think about where that play should reside and what the best technology we should be using to facilitate that play. This isn't a scenario where everything we want to do needs to now go through our email AI agents, right? We have to look and see what's the audience size, what are the outcomes, what are the different activations that we want to be running. So is this a map play? Is this an SEP play? Or are we going to be leveraging our AI email agents, right? So I think of like intent-based nurtures. Like we had actually talked about leveraging our agents for that, but that just was not a good use case for that particular avenue to go, right? Map was the better avenue for that. The other one that we did, and we've done it a couple times, it's just was a little bit challenging to scale, was, working with reps on and within their particular patch on a set of unique accounts. That worked. But again, if we wanted to scale that up, that would be a little bit of a challenge because every single one of those scenarios is a little bit unique and we'd have to essentially go and create, these campaigns and these plays individually. So that one was a little bit of an aha moment for us as well to say, hey, this worked, but could we truly scale this to actually be, impactful for the broader org? Should we want to go that route?
It's an interesting point because maybe when we initially set out creating these email agent campaigns, there was a thought that potentially these could be, every seller could have an email AI agent that worked alongside them. And we quickly kind of moved away from that. How should other ops professionals or teams be thinking about what types of agents to create and how to manage it?
Simplicity is your friend. Every agent you add, every workflow you add, every work stream adds an additional layer of complexity, not only from an execution perspective, but also from a reporting and measurement perspective. So those are all things that we're considering and should be considered when you're thinking about the approach that you want to take. Ultimately, where we landed was we wanted to ensure that each segment had a bit of autonomy. So we assigned an AI assistant to each one of the segments. So we didn't have to necessarily run the same campaign across all three go-to-market segments. We could use an AI agent for that particular segment. So it was a good way for us to simplify, have a single work stream, be able to report out, but still have a little bit of autonomy within each of those segments.
And with AI being a little bit of the wild, wild west, right? When you think of all the tools that are out there, how have we, at Sixth Sense in particular, and your team, managed the ownership of the agents? Like, it is all centralized within one team, really for that purpose, right? Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, it's a great question. It has to be owned by your operations team, and that's really a hard stop. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but I will highlight a few kind of captain obvious ones. One is going to be, think about all the other email activations that you have going on. You need to ensure that, from an overlap perspective, where you've got your agents going, you've got your map going, maybe you have other email streams that are running. You want to ensure that from an outreach perspective, you're not having multiple emails go to the same individuals. That's typically not going to land well. And the other thing as well is typically your ops team are going to be very connected with all of the key stakeholders within the right functions of the business, right? So they're going to have that sort of understanding of like what the business wants to do from a go-to-market perspective, but then also have the technical know-how of that sort of technical, tactical type of implementations, being able to work cross-functionally with any of the operational teams as well.
All right. So I'm sitting out there right now. I'm a listener. I'm like, all right, AI emailed you. This is the thing. I'm going to jump in. I'm going to get something going today. Tomorrow, I'm going to start getting meetings. But it's probably not that easy, right? So what are some of the things, and this, I guess, key considerations or things that are going to happen, or that need to happen rather, for an organization to get started? I know this is something that we continue to work on, and it's an important metric for anybody that's doing AI-based email.
I speak with a lot of customers, and one of the most interesting data points that continuously comes up in my conversations is the types of campaigns that want to be run. And more times than not, the types of campaigns are progression-paced campaigns or low-intent campaigns with expectations of driving pipeline and meetings and revenue. So the first thing you've got to do when you start with any program, using AI or anything for that matter, is back to what I said earlier, make sure you're very clear on what the outcomes are and how you're communicating those back to your team. So like the number one rule, like hey, we want to start going with email, we want to start leveraging AI agents, what are those conversion-based plays that you want to run so you can generate pipeline and be able to associate that back to those efforts? Time and time again, it's, we're doing booth scan follow-up from all of these leads that came to our booth, and we scanned them and they took our swag and they moved on, and our BDRs can't get meetings, but we're going to use our agents to go after them. Well, it doesn't work like that, right? The agents aren't going to go be able to generate pipeline and conversion, if your humans aren't able to, essentially get that done as well. So I think it's just going about it the right way, and just being fair and honest with like what your desired outcomes are based off of the quality of the audience that you're reaching out to.
Totally. And when you mentioned even your our top 3 best performing campaigns, guess what? They weren't low intent, lead or account follow-up, right? It really was the inbounds, the high intent outbounds, and the opportunities that we'd already been in a sales cycle with from a close loss perspective. What other considerations should, again, folks listening have? You can't just turn an agent on and expect to point a list of 20,000 leads against it. Like again, you talked about the crawl, walk, run, but there's a technical aspect to the crawl, walk, run as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, if we go back to the crawl and we think about what is that sort of technical component that we've got to do, is as any good steward of data, we want to ensure that we're not putting ourselves in a position where we're going to get blacklisted or we're going to run into challenges of not being able to send emails. So we've got to go through what is called like this inbox warming period, where we're only sending a few emails a day, call it 20 emails a day, and slowly starting to ramp that up. And the reason why we do that is we want to ensure that the health of that box, that sort of inbox, and the integrity is held. So we can start to email at larger volumes, not map volumes. We don't ever want to be there, but certainly volumes that would allow you to be effective in these type of outreaches. So yeah, this is one that, there's no getting around it. It's an absolute must. And if done, right and following the rules, it's going to, set you up for success.
So if you don't do that, I guess what happens, right? Because there's something simple as just like your emails are going to spam, but I would imagine there's something far more damaging that can happen as well.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You get restricted. Your inbox becomes restricted, right? And you're not able to send any emails. And you have to go get it unrestricted and go through another warming. But every time that gets restricted, it impacts the integrity of that inbox. So it's really important to not become restricted. And that's done by making sure you're warming it and you're sticking to, best practices around daily send limits. So it is critical to do it. And there are absolutely negative impacts if you don't.
Yeah. So follow the rules, follow the process, and scale slowly. What has surprised you in a good way, though, right? We've talked about compliance. We've talked about oversight and ownership. But I know you are I'm just going to say it, you're a nerd when it comes to this sort of stuff. You're in the platform, you're reading the emails, you're looking to see, I include myself in that. It's coming from a place of love. You're in there and you're looking to see what the AI agent is sending and also how it's replying. What surprised you the most?
Yeah. So I've got a couple things that I'll hit on here that has surprised me the most. One, when we talk about just the quality of the interactions that we're seeing the AI have, it has absolutely blown me away. We've seen our AIs reply with empathy. We've seen our AIs reply with just acknowledging the questions that are being asked to the point where we had to go back and look at the thread to determine whether or not our AI had lost its mind talking about Christmas lights. But the reality is Christmas lights were mentioned in that email correspondence. So just even seeing things like that tells me just how smart and how impactful that AI can be and just how relatable it can also be as well. And I think that's also important to remember as well as AI has the ability to still feel and act like a human. And when I see empathy and when I see those types of things, like those are the types of things to me that really kind of stick out to me as just, like I said, if done well, if done right, it can be really impactful and provide such a positive experience. The other thing as well I would kind of hit on is I absolutely live for art of the possible. When someone tells me something can't be done, I'm just like, no, hell no. We're going to go do it. We're going to crush it.
We're going to break it. We're going to try.
We're going to break it and we're going to prove people wrong. And I think we had a lot of reservations around some of the plays that we wanted to run. Look, Adam, you're on right now. When we told you we were going to set up our inbound agent, I think you went all white.
Well, yeah. I had, we have an inbound goal that, it's on my head and they take my head if I don't meet it. So it was
we do take his head.
Simon does, she laughs maniacally and there's blood splatter, but sorry, that was violent. And so, yeah, I was like, oh, really? And what wound up happening was remarkable because again, there was a segment of our business that was, high volume and we gave it off to the AI. There's certainly human intervention coming in on the other end. Mm-hmm. And we saw conversion rates just go up significantly. I think it's to your point earlier about speed to lead. Speed to lead that's never a metric that goes out of style. And the results were to the point where I was like, all right, why aren't we just doing it all and letting every single inbound at least start with an AI touch. So yeah, it was coming. Definitely, yeah, I know.
It's coming. Yeah.
Hesitancy is definitely something, but I think people start to see results and they forget very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. We are a Slack culture, right? We live and operate by and through Slack. How amazing was it to see our BDRs shouting out our email agents when they were booking their meetings? Like, I never in a million years expected that. Like, there was massive reservations from that team on launching that qualified account outreach to work in parallel with our BDRs working those accounts. And now they're shouting them out on Slack. That to me was just like, all right, we've arrived. We're here. Like, our agents are certainly going to have an impact, continue to have an impact. And one of the things I didn't touch on, and I actually just had to confirm this number before us chatting, was we have reduced, and mind you, this was actually not a stat we were measuring. We wanted to generate 20%, right? That was our North Star. That's where we were laser focused. But when we look at last year, we reduced BDR activities by 59% from a qualified account to a scheduled meeting. And why that's so important is because we've allowed our BDRs more time to be effective in those things that they're really freaking good at, which is getting on the phone, hyper-personalized emails, using all of that intent data, all of those signals, all of those information within 6 Sense, and then also reaching out on LinkedIn. And I don't think we talk about that enough, but that to me is one of the things that has been really cool to see from our teams.
I feel like we should end on this high note because yes, the email agents have helped us break company records for pipeline, right? 2 out of the last 4 months were best ever pipeline months at the company. And so there's a lot to be said about just how AI can support that. But we've promoted more BDRs than ever to AE roles. And so fewer touches, meaning fewer repetitive touches from BDRs, but more selling.
Quality, yep. And I think the thing right at the opening when we were saying, ask you the question, like, what do you think an agent is? And you said you went specifically to capacity, but working together and cooperatively. And I think that of all the people on LinkedIn that tell, everyone's dead, the BDR role is dead, being dead is dead. It's very much like AI is not coming for the jobs in the sense that AI is coming to make people better. And it's, again, that's the perfect point, right? The BDRs can focus on what they're good at. The AI is doing its thing and they're working together and now they're shouting each other out.
AI is a career accelerator. It is not a career detractor. It's not going to prevent you from, moving on in your career. It's going to help expedite and get you there faster.
Love it. Yeah. Dutton, we have a question that we ask everyone who comes on the show. What is the most ridiculous thing you've been asked to do in your career? And hopefully I didn't ask.
I was going to say, it could have been my Simon.
If you had asked me this question, probably right after it happened, I probably wouldn't have thought it was ridiculous at all. But, because I'm a lot older and wiser in my years and have had a lot of time to reflect, I would say the craziest thing that I was asked to do was I was a bouncer at one of our corporate parties, and this was eons ago, working a door with a list that was, everything was written down on paper. And I had to manage a line of just people that were not all that nice. I can't even imagine having to do that today or putting anyone in a position to do that if you're not a trained professional.
There you go. Dutton, if there's any MOPS professional listening who is looking to dip their toes into email agents, AI for outreach, for working inbounds, number one, should they? And number two, how should they go about it? Maybe should they reach out to you? Like, what is your advice?
Yeah, no, absolutely. First off, yes, reach out to me. I am, like I said, very passionate about this particular topic. Love to have a conversation. But I would also recommend just leaning in. A lot of people have just been talking about AI. I think there's some hesitancy perhaps around it. But the reality is it's here. It's here to stay. So we've got to make sure, we're going about it, the right way. But, we've got to lean in. We've got to understand, what's out there. What are the potential outcomes? What are the potential impacts? So my recommendation would be lean in, reach out to me if you have any questions. And then lastly, as MOPS professionals, we often struggle sometimes with how can MOPS have an impact on pipeline and revenue. And this is a clear way for a marketing operation professionals to have a direct impact on exactly that pipeline and revenue through those efforts that you are ultimately going to be leading.
And also, to be a truly successful master professional, you have to be called by your last name. I think we've definitely determined that.
It's a given.
That's how.
Thank God that's my last name.
Well, sir, thank you for hopping on with us. Always a pleasure. Enjoyable. I think great actionable tips for the folks out there.
And we love working with you every day.
Absolutely.
Likewise, I appreciate the both of you.
You've been listening to Revenue Makers.
Do you have a revenue project you were asked to execute that had wild success? Share your story with us at sixthsense.com/revenue, and we might just ask you to come on the show. And if you don't want to miss the next episode, be sure to follow along on your favorite podcast app.